Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Your video is actually, now it's clear, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir, and dear students. Welcome to AKS IAS. Today we have Charan Lakkaraju, sir, with us, who is a trainer and a motivational speaker. Today he's going to teach us about enrichment of communication skills. Thank you. You can start the class, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the new class. And first of all, it's a very interesting topic, and we are talking on a verbal method, on an online model, and we are talking about something called communication. And when we use a word called enrichment, so the basics of communication in the last session, there were a few technical glitches, and I didn't articulate the way I should have articulated because of the technical glitches. So I try to just divide this conversation with you into 2 to 3 areas. The first area is about type of communication skills. And there are some interesting facets which I wanted to talk today, because generally, whenever we talk about communication skills, we always talk about listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And the whole idea is about, when we talk about listening, speaking, reading, and writing, there are few topics which are not generally utilized in the terms of communication. One idea which I wanted to discuss with you today is about how respect plays a great role in the whole communication part. You might be thinking why Charan is talking about respect and communication. What is the relation between respect and a communication skill? If you remember, I was talking about the first communication skill is listening. And listening involves 2 things. One, which is all about active listening and passive listening. And this passive listening is always something where you show not much concentration to the speaker. And most of the times, because majority of you are preparing for the competitive exams, respect plays a very, very important role where you try to tend or give or be attentive to the other speaker. And this respect comes out of, for the speaker, like when you are sitting in an audience, if you like a speaker, you always pay attention. If you respect a speaker, you pay attention. That attention, or when you know people and when you have listening power, always doubles up, where you listen to them very, very attentively and you pay attention to the details. And this is very, very important in the communication part. So you might be knowing like the first communication, because I'm trying to cover the order in the LSRW, in the enrichment of the communication, where in listening, I always tell people have respect for the other person. I'll tell you a very important point. When you come to the speaking part, after listening, the speaking pops up in the communication. So when you are talking, you always observe one thing. As a public speaker, you always want people to show attention to you. You want the eye contact to be there. But when you go deeper to it, you seek respect from the audience. And lots of times, communication skills is no one talks about respect inside the communication skills topic. They always talk about, okay, fine, your body language should be like this. You have to maintain eye contact. Don't just have a proper etiquette. All these things are okay, fine. We will talk about it when we need to, and majority of them you have keep on hearing about lots of things. So why I started the topic with respect today is like, when you're talking about respect, you are commanding respect, not asking for it. As a listener, you give respect. When you speak, you command respect. And that's true with your words, with your opening statement, with the lines which you use. And the opening statements play a very great role in your increasing or enriching your communication skills. That is the subset which is speaking. So when you come to active listening, because after covering this topic called having a respect for the listener, having a respect for the speaker, the other idea or the other thought which you need to have is about how you comprehend or how you increase your vocabulary, how you increase your vocabulary bank. Because when you listen more, when you listen now, you have the facility of Audible, you have listen of stories, which are there as audio stories. When you listen more, there are apps like Storytel, there are apps like Audible. These apps were books, because being a voracious reader, I am so used to podcasts these days, because slowly everyone is moving towards audio mode, because you can do some work parallelly, you can start listening to some or other book. The reason why I'm mentioning this now is like when you listen and absorb lots of or imbibe those words, it when you absorb those words and try to write own sentences with those words, because you should know which context you have to use that word. When you listen a word, so when you say accentuate, when you say accentuate, when you listen cognizant, because when you listen these words in some context, the moment you write an own sentence, you apply that sentence in your own life. I'm cognizant about what's happening around me. When I use a word called cognizant, it's not Cognizant Technology Services. It's not TCS, Cognizant, or Infosys, which we are talking. But when you use a word called cognizant, I'm aware, the levels of awareness. When you use that in a sentence, when you listen to that at the start, your communication, when you use the word while you're speaking, when you're articulating a point, I'm cognizant about situations in my native district in a civils interview, always has that nice impression, which is not reflected immediately, but it plays on the subconscious mind of the interviewer also, or the audience, about the kind of vocabulary you have. It is a feather in a cap. So the point which I'm trying to tell you here is like, if you listen well, if you enrich your vocabulary bank, you can articulate well when you're speaking too. Again, I'm coming to the reading part later, but why am I juggling between listening and speaking? These days, the most important communication skills are at first two skills. I'm not denying the fact of reading and writing, but the more implementation of communication these days are to listening and speaking, because that's where the whole world is moving towards. Slowly, the reading is becoming listening, because if you observe, there was some time back where it was all about book reading. Now you have lots of options where someone will read the book and you can just listen to it. And writing, you can talk, something else is writing these days. The transcript is, now we are on a Zoom call. There is a facility where someone can just, you can just click a button at the end of the meeting. You can get the whole transcript of my conversation in a proper spelling-wise manner. You use Amazon, Alexa's, or Google's. So day by day, reading and writing. And to enrich the first two skills, because it's very much needed for you today. Like, let's say when you talk about the speaking, how, because the speaking is a completely a different subject when you want to enrich that skill. Here you have to go back to the functions in math, which is very, very important. One-to-one, one-to-many, many-to one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. If you remember the sets theory and the functions, one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. So I keep telling why I bring those functions in speaking here. The speaking differs in each sector. If you are doing speaking in one-to-one, the whole concept is different. If you are doing one-to-many, the speaking is different. If you are doing a many-to-many, or you're in a debate and everyone is shouting and everyone is speaking, then it's a completely different ball game where you raise your voice. The reason why I'm telling about these functions here, you have to mold yourself in a way where you don't look misplaced or a misfit or a square peg in a round hole. How do you enrich because we are talking about enriching skills? Again, I'll take one step back to the vocabulary bank, which we discussed about listening to lots of vocabulary there. The moment you listen to lots of vocabulary, what happens is like when you are talking, you start understanding where to use which word. This is a play of, there's a nice book called The Power of Subconscious Mind. If you get a chance, you guys can hear it or read it. The Power of Subconscious Mind, in that book, they keep telling about how skills will help when you have kind of a vocabulary bank. And you know, your mind tells you, because now this session is happening and a couple of them are watching, or some of you are watching. When you're watching this, you're continuously, constantly talking to your inner self. And when you're talking to your inner self, the whole concept that, okay, fine, why is this guy telling this? And you start mapping it to something. And it's a human tendency, because we don't listen, we always hear things. And we always have our own benchmarks in our mind. We try to compare or we try to validate things more than listening what the other person is telling. Even it's not a mistake of you, it happens to me too. Because as a speaker, I keep telling my fellow speakers, the moment I'm mesmerized, I'm not evaluating you. Because when you stop evaluating, it means that you are listening more to the speaker. Because we always we always react more, but not respond. Because we always have this habit of reacting to the statement, not listening to it completely. Just imagine if you don't understand the vocabulary in the other person's language, how can you react to? You don't react. You can't even respond. Yes, there are techniques where you say, sorry, can you just get back again? Or I didn't understand. That's okay. But if you want to enrich your thing, you have to utilize the vocabulary bank and keep increasing the horizons of that vocabulary bank. And second thing, very important, not only words. The second important thing is the idioms and phrases. Most of the times when you're listening, I have your back. Yesterday, there was Father's Day. And there was a statement, I have my father's back. When someone uses a line or a phrase or an idiom, it's very, very crucial about whether you understand it or not. I have my father's back. When you say I have my father's back, what do you mean by it? It's raining cats and dogs is the most common line which is learned in any competitive exams. The moment someone says idioms and phrases, the first thing they understand is cats and dogs. But when you go to deeper, there are lots of idioms and phrases which are taken from the other languages into the English, and they are used. And it shows the articulation level. It tells you the intellectual capacity or the voracity or the kind of a talk that lots of people do. I keep telling people, the movement, it's not something which you have to use consciously, but when you keep learning, when you keep listening to these type of things, you always know when to use it and what is the right time to use it. As an administrator, as a potential government servant, or as a potential leader in the future, you should know when to use your words very smartly, very precisely, and in a manner where the other person understands the whole context. Because talk less, say more is very crucial. How can you do talk less? How can you do say more? Where you can always use phrases, because phrases are short, but they talk less, but they say more. If you talk less and say more, the other person, always you command respect. Because lots of people, because that's what I told you, if you use a word where the other person doesn't understand the meaning, at least there's a seeker who tries to understand the meaning, who is curious enough to go and search for it. That's one type. That's what happens whenever Shashi Tharoor starts talking. The second thing, the other person becomes calmer because he doesn't try to retaliate immediately because he doesn't understand it. And this is very crucial, because as a leader, you have to get down to the level of the person and talk. That's one way of communication. But when you want to enrich your communication skills, it's all about how you utilize proper vocabulary also. And talking less, saying more. The same line can be said, I am aware about my surroundings. I'm aware about my surroundings. I'm cognizant about my surroundings. Sometimes this enriches the whole communication part also. Because I keep telling, some of them, when they speak, some of them use notes and start jotting down. Some of them, when they speak, they understand it better. Either ways, it's good, but you should know where to use what, which tool to use where. And this helps you in writing also, because it tells the other person how you are communicating lots of information in very precise manner. So this enrichment is a continuous process. It's not something which is a kind of an overnight, because enrichment of communication skills cannot be done in an overnight. And that overnight is not 15 days. It's very long. It's longer than 15 days. It takes years for some people, and it's a continuous journey. There are lots of mistakes when I speak too. There are lots of times when I keep telling people, when you get identified with your mistakes, when you're aware about your mistakes, it means that you'll know something, because no one is perfect. And there's a language where you have to, I keep telling, communication doesn't mean English only. Communication can be in any language, because people think that communication is English communication in India. Somehow we have made it kind of a synonym for that. But when you see from a particular point, it's about, as I started my session saying, that how can you respect the speaker? When you respect the speaker, you start respecting his words. When you respect his words, you start understanding the intent behind it. The intent behind it, the context behind it. Because when you understand the intent and the context, what happens is, like, you listen it very well. When you listen it very well, you comprehend it very well. When you comprehend it very well, you understand it very well, and you respond to that in a very articulate manner, using your vocabulary bank again. And the last two things, how to enrich your reading habit, how to enrich your writing habit. These are two separate topics on its own, but I wanted to understand one basic context here. When you see from a broader point of view, today, why reading is getting obsolete, and a lot of people have this issue. I keep telling people who are preparing for competitive exams, they see, okay, fine, I'm a voracious reader. I read it for long hours. But I keep telling it should be kind of a small sprints rather than a marathon, because the information to imbibe in our mind, it takes a long time. Today, the world is becoming shorter. If you see, it was an essay, now it became a status. Twitter, tweet, it becomes some 160 characters. The videos, WhatsApp videos, 30 seconds. Everything is becoming smaller now. When things are becoming smaller, we need to understand the attention time is also decreasing. When attention time is decreasing, how well you read should be decreasing in intervals only, because you cannot pay attention after a point of time. So how do you give breaks when you are reading is very crucial. Everyone's appetite might be different. I might have a voracious appetite of reading a chapter or a couple of chapters at a go, but you might read only half a chapter or a couple of pages. It's okay. But start understanding your appetite and use nudge theory of increasing your appetite in stepwise manner rather than reading a book at a go at the first instance itself. And reading is something where everyone has their own technique. But I keep telling people how you start doing basics, how you start breaking down into smaller pieces will always make you a better person, rather than just going all out and doing it at a one go. So reading is a one habit where I'm not a new person, or I'm not a person again to keep repeating the same lines. Everyone should read books. There is no second thought about it. But when you're reading, how to read is very crucial. Because of your less appetite, start dividing it with pages and start choosing topics which are of your interest. Because personal interest, as I started my session, respect, interest, these are the words which are very crucial in communication skills, which are not often discussed about. And the last thing, writing. Maybe I can go deeper talking about writing, but writing is something where if people, it's kind of a skill where after a few years, you feel there are only few people who can write well. People are losing patience. Now people cannot write and more than essay, but people who are preparing for mains and the next level, that is the most important. Drafting is the most important thing. But one needs to keep it very clear that when they know how to articulate, it can be converted into a transcript. So you should know the more grammatical ways, because while speaking, it can get ignored. When you're writing, everything gets highlighted, as simple as that. Because when you are writing something, it gets highlighted. Even your smallest of the smallest mistake is visible when you write something. And writing is always at the last. In LSRW, it's not an alphabetical order. If it was alphabetical order, it would have been LRSW. But it was LSRW because it's a natural order that the last thing that someone becomes perfect, or the minority sector in the communication skills, and the toughest one to enrich is writing. So it's kind of a process. I don't want you guys to see this as a sprint. Look at this as a marathon, as a journey where you understand that this is a continuous process. This is not for a competitive exam. This doesn't end at a certain point. Tomorrow in your work life also, you might be a leader who is heading a state or a district or a taluka. Your communication decides what you do, because your communication, if it's not done in a right manner, because there are lots of facets where we keep on learning few things. How you are connecting eye to eye to the other person, how you are straight to the point, how you are straightforward talking to the point, how you are subtle, how you are empathetic. All these soft skills come in your communication skills as a leader. Whether you sound rude, because direct communication and indirect communication, these are very, very sensitive topics. Because as a leader, you should know how to balance it. How you are, because the type of words you choose, the action, the body language, the behavior, all these are part of communication, because everything is talking to the other person. The body language is talking to the other person. The eye contact is talking to the other person. The words are talking to the other person. So you need to be very careful and be choosy in enriching your communication skills, because these play a very crucial role. And as I said in the last session, today's leaders are orators. And if you are an orator, it means that you have enriched your communication skills in a more decent manner. And that's an ongoing process. So one needs to keep working on it. Thank you. So I might be taking a few questions.
Yes, sir. So there are no questions as such.
So people don't want to communicate as such.
So thank you so much, sir, for your insightful lecture.
Sure. I hope I added some value or brought few points to the floor. So it would have be great if I've got any questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions in the offline too. So thanks for the opportunity, and thank you, Ravi. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, dear students.